Hi guys, welcome to me, the firefighting chef with Meet the Vegans. Welcome to my house, welcome to my kitchen. So on the menu today, what we're going to be cooking is kind of a pulled jackfruit in brioche with a coleslaw. So let's meet today's cast, shall we? Okay, so what we're going to use is we're going to use an onion, okay? So we're going to chop up this onion. Now, I'm using a red onion. Why does he use a red onion, you say? I normally use red onions as a matter of staple because I put them into salads because they're a softer flavour to use in a salad. They're not so harsh kind of on your palate as say like a yellow or a brown onion would be, okay? So I use red onions quite a lot because there's a lovely flavour off of them, have them raw or have them cooked. So I kind of just go for the red onion. And I also believe that if you're going to eat food, eat the rainbow. And purple food is really, really good for us. There's lots of kind of science behind it. I just know the fact that purple is good, so I work with purple foods. Orange food is good as well, so we've got carrots and stuff like that. So we're going to make kind of like our jackfruit, and we're going to cover it in like a smoky barbecue sauce. Smoky flavours and smoky environments is something that I'm very, very familiar with over the last 30 years as a firefighter. So we're going to be putting into those big, bold flavours, and we're going to be using that jackfruit, and it gives that, it mimics that kind of that pulled meat effect, but from a plant-based point of view, okay? We're going to put in there cinnamon. So I've got about a teaspoon of cinnamon. Don't worry about trying to write all this down because we're going to provide you with, for this course, we're going to give you the ingredients, we're going to give you what you need for to cook the dish in the first place, and we're going to break it down step by step, okay? So stay with me through this journey from A to B. So we've got cinnamon. Cinnamon itself is brilliant to help regulate your blood sugars. It's like nature's sweetener as well. So we put this into a dish, it adds some sweetness to it. And again, don't be afraid to kind of add quite a bit to it. I'll always say with a recipe, right, is that it's that journey from A to B. And the first time you ever make that journey, you get lost. So we follow a map, we follow a plan. We use Google Maps and it tells us where to go. I'm your Google Maps for cooking today. But what I will say is the more proficient you become with cooking, the stronger cook you become, the more experienced you are, the less of the recipe you'll do. And you start to learn the flavors. You start to learn what the combinations taste like. So you'll say, I like a little bit more cumin, or I like a little bit less. I want to put some garlic in there. You do whatever you want to do. You're the master of your own destiny with this. But as I say, for the first time, if it is your first time, if you're kind of like vegan curious and you want to dabble into the world of plant-based cooking, then this is one of the really good recipes to start with, because I say it's got those really bold flavors. So cinnamon. We're going to put in there as well some cumin. All right, so I've got about a teaspoon of cumin seeds. So cumin seeds itself, they lend themselves, again, that real kind of like, almost like not Middle Eastern, but it gives it that real kind of different kind of flavor. And as you can see here, we've got quite a lot of things going on, but what they do is they start to layer with flavors and you start to get this beautiful flavor. There isn't one that's predominant that kind of jumps out at you. There's just this like this consistent building of flavors. And you might taste something first of all, like the cumin maybe, and then you get the paprika coming afterwards. Then you might get that layer of that tartness of the vinegar, or you may get the tartness of the barbecue sauce or something like that, right? Then we're going to put in there smoked paprika. I always use smoked paprika just for anything, and I find for me, the way I look at paprika is it like brings the dish together. If you might like make like a tomato sauce or like a bolognese or something like that, and you taste it and you say, do you know something, it's the flavors are there, but they're not linked up, right? So I find that smoked paprika is like kind of like the, I don't know, it's like the kind of the thing that brings everything together. And because it's smoked, it gives it a real earthy taste and a real earthy flavor. So I use this as kind of like a storeroom staple. So if you was to say, what would you kind of have as a, you know, like in your cupboard for things that you really want to make sure that you would use pretty much all the time, smoked paprika is one of my go-tos. Tomato paste is another go-to as well. So there's certain things that I would say, and we'll go through these over these courses as to things that if you have them, then you'll always be guaranteed to make a good plant-based dish, okay? What we're going to put in there as well is we're going to put in there these are adobo peppers in like a nice smoky sauce, okay? So it's like a jalapeno pepper. It's a nice kick off of that in like a smoky tomato sauce. You can buy them in tins, and in the tin, sort of like about so many, you get sort of like 6 or 8 of these chilies in there in this lovely smoky kind of tomato sauce. And all I do then is I just individualize them, either I'd ice cube tray and freeze them and then pop them into a little bag, or just pop them into little baggies and then bang them into the freezer, and I take them from there, okay? So that's that. That's going to give it that real kind of little kick that goes on in there as well. Apple cider vinegar, again, it's a nice flavor enhancer. It really brings out the kind of the tomatoey flavors. They work really well. It just enhances some flavor. So a little flavor enhancer almost adds to a seasoning as well, because I always say I have salt and pepper, but we'll always just taste as we go to see, does it need it, okay? And then what we've got is a barbecue sauce. So I've got like about 4 odd tablespoons of barbecue sauce. Just because I'm saying 4 tablespoons, If you want to put more in, as I said, make it your own. Put more in. You're more than welcome to. Why am I using a barbecue sauce? Well, as I said, someone invented the wheel, and since then they haven't tried to reinvent the wheel. It's there, it works, and it's brilliant. Barbecue sauces, things like ketchups and stuff like that, we can use small amounts of those in our sauces. So we're taking this as kind of like, it's our base flavor. We're going to enhance it with all of these other flavors as well to kind of really draw out those flavors and give it greater depth, a bit more of a punch as well by putting in these kind of chili peppers too. All right, so that's why I'm using this. So I don't take any shame in saying I'm going to squirt some barbecue sauce in there because I want that flavor, and they're really good at what they do. I'm not going to just buy the sauce and use it as it is because some of these have, you know, like a higher sugar content and things like that. So I'll be very mindful of what I put into food, especially when we're feeding the kids. So all I want to make sure is that with this, I'm monitoring how much I put into it in the first place, okay? Then it comes down to, again, one of my other favorite ingredients, which I'd use quite a lot, all right, which is this liquid smoke, okay? So like I call this like firefighter's sweat. So what is it? It's a hickory smoked liquid that we can add into dishes, and it gives it that smokiness, it gives it that fieriness without having to go outside and smoke something. It gives it that smoky flavor. With this, it gives it the depth. With this, it gives it the smokiness. We're getting some sweetness from this. We're gonna get a little kick from this as well, okay? So that's that. And then lastly, we're putting in some tomatoes. So I'm gonna put in some tomatoes into our jackfruit, and all it's gonna do is it's just gonna kind of bring it together, and it's gonna give it almost like that kind of, it's not gonna be saucy because we reduce it down. So it's gonna be kind of like sticky and sweet and stuff like that. And of course, as I said there, we're going to serve that in our brioche bun, but we're also going to have that with kind of like a Cajun slaw. So this is kind of like that, kind of like deep South Cajun-y smoky flavors and stuff like that. So with our coleslaw, what we're going to do is we're going to make like a mixed cabbage slaw, okay? We've got some red cabbage, we've got some white cabbage, which we're just going to shred up. We're going to pop in there a couple of carrots, and then we're going to bring all that together with a dressing. So traditionally you would have looked at like a mayonnaise or something like that, and you can get a really good plant-based mayonnaise these days. So we're going to do it in more of like a mustard and lemon juice dressing. So all we're going to do is we're just going to take some lemon juice, we're going to take some Dijon mustard, we're going to take some oil, we mix it up, and we just toss all of those vegetables into that, and that gives us that beautiful Cajun slaw. Okay, so now we're pretty much ready to kind of get going. So come along, join us now for the next phase. Oh, what do we need first of all? We need a good knife because we're going to be chopping up our onions, okay? So as I always say to the knife, pincer grip this, grip the handle, okay? If you just hold the handle, especially when you're cutting things that are rolling around, there's that potential for it to move. So all I would say is just to pinch there, hold the handle, and you get a good grip. Knife, we're going to need a big knife, we're going to need a small knife, okay? I chop and change between the two. Some people would just be quite happy to use this. It's a thicker blade on it, so if you're doing like intricate work, sometimes it's nice to drop down to the smaller paring knife, okay? Make sure your knives are sharp. You're more than likely to cut yourself on a blunt knife as you are on a sharp knife, okay? We're going to be using something to stir the dish, and we're going to be using like a deep dish kind of a pan. You can use a frying pan, you can use a pot if you want. Don't rush out and go and buy a pan just because the firefighting chef said you need a pan. Don't have to worry about that. Just use what you have, okay? So I have one of these. I like this pan. It's nice and wide, it's nice and shallow, and it allows a nice kind of surface area for me to cook stuff, especially if I'm going to reduce it down to make like sticky sauces. So a pan, something to stir it. We have our knives. We're going to be using a cheese grater, just a regular kind of a grater to grate down our carrots and bits and pieces. We've got something there just to zest up or just to juice up our lemons, so just for the lemon juice, because we're using like a fat and an acid to make our salad dressing, which is lemon juice and olive oil. Again, you can use vegetable oil if you wish. I use olive oil quite a lot. It's just one of the things I buy because I can just grab it and I can pour it on my salads, or I can use it for cooking. And the only difference, as we've said before, is kind of the smoke point or the heat at which this will start to kind of degrade. So with regards to this, you can use this for gentle kind of sauteing down to sweating. And if you're using a veggie oil or vegetable oil, that's when we're looking at things more, you know, kind of like for frying and stuff like that. So that's our oil. And then so there, all we're going to do is we're going to put all these together, toss it up, finish it off in this beautiful bap there, and we're going to serve that with a little bit of truffle mayonnaise, all right? So without further ado, let's get ready to start cooking. So what I want to do is just pop all this stuff to one side, clear the board, and then we're ready to rock and roll, okay? Okay guys, so what do we do first of all? What we need to do first of all is we need to get our onion, and what we're going to do is we're going to chop this onion, okay? So the first thing we need to do is obviously peel the onion. When we're going to chop the onion, there's different things we can do. You can slice, you can dice. I sound like a market stall trade. You can slice it, you can dice it. I'll do you these 1 for £5, or I'll do you 2 for 15 quid, all right? So what we're going to do is I'm just going to take off the little piece of the bottom of my onion here, and I'm using the small knife for this, okay? And then what we want to do is we just want to take off the outer layer of the onion. So we're just going to peel this onion, all right? Sometimes you'll get the onion, and when I'm in the shop, I'm terrible. I give everything like a squeeze and a feel to make sure that I'm not buying like a dud. So I'm in there and I'm looking at all the fruit and I'm giving it a squeeze and I'm looking at all the onions and stuff like that, making sure I get kind of like good value for money. So this dish isn't an expensive dish to make by any means, don't get me wrong. So all we're going to do is we're going to peel this onion, okay? We're going to use one full onion in the dish, and then we'll use some more onions for our coleslaw, okay? So what we've got is we've got one red onion. Now, as you can see there, I've left this top bit on. And the reason I've left this top bit on is because I'm going to half it and then I'm going to finely dice the onion, okay? So what we do is clean down. Ooh, come back. Cleanliness. Always keep a clean surface. Always be prepared. Firefighting and cooking has taught me one thing, is preparation for service, preparation for an emergency. Prep, prep and prep. I can't emphasize it enough. Get yourself a few little bowls. It makes cooking so much easier. There's nothing worse than saying, right, I need to cut an onion, or I need some paprika, and you have to go off to the cupboard, or I need some potatoes and they're over there, because you end up going here to there. Cooking you should enjoy, it shouldn't be a chore, and it's much easier. Spend those extra few minutes getting everything ready for you. Have it all laid out for you. Have it in sequence of how you're going to put it in. So for the confident cook, you can just reach out and grab it. For someone that isn't, here's your recipe. You saw the recipe here. You saw all of the ingredients. You get to see what goes into it before we put it in, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our red onion, and I would already cut off the bottom part of the onion. And what it's given me is it's given me a nice firm base, so it's not going to roll all over the place. Remember, a nice good grip on the knife. And all we're going to do is from the top of the onion, we're just going to slice down this onion here like so, okay? And then what we've got is we've got our two halves of an onion. And then what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this onion and we're actually going to be cutting down through the onion like this. The wider you cut the onion, the bigger the chunks. The tighter, the narrower we cut this, okay, the smaller the pieces of onion are going to be. So as I said, with this dish, because there's going to be kind of like the pulled jackfruit in there as well, I'm going to cut the onion quite small, and it also means the smaller things are, the quicker sometimes they're going to cook as well, all right? Now, as I always say, I'm a lazy chef. I'm lazy when it comes to cooking. I like to cook around my lifestyle. I like to make sure that I've got kind of like things that I can have my go-tos, that I can just say, yeah, we're going to cook this and cook that. I know the time frame of how long this takes to cook. This takes about 40 minutes to cook from kind of start to finish, so it's a really easy and simple dish to do. So all I do with my onion, okay, is I just slice through. And as I say, I'm keeping this nice and tight. I'm doing this nice and slow so you can see it. Okay, and I'm nice even slices, which gives me an even cube of the onion. Okay, so what you've got is here, and then what we do is we cut across this piece. Okay, so we just cut into the onion, and all that's going to do is it's going to give us some nice small cubes. Now I can do exactly the same with the bigger knife. All right, just to show you that we can. The big difference between this and this really is confidence and experience. That's it. They both do exactly the same job. So if you're happy with this, brilliant. If you're happy with this, brilliant. Your chopping board as well, guys. I'm fortunate enough, I've got a huge big chopping board here. If you've just got like a small little chopping board, all right, and you find that it kind of slides around on your work surface, get a kitchen towel or a tea towel or a piece of kitchen paper, just wet it, put it down and put your board on top of that, and that will stop it from sliding all over the place, because the last thing you want to do is trying to chase this around the chopping board, or the chopping board keep moving. This isn't going anywhere, okay? And then all we're going to do, as I said before, it's like the claw, and we're going to be using this part and we're going to use this knife. And when we chop or slice, we make sure that the knife never leaves the board, okay? So we're just going to go along like this. You can get used to doing it without anything, and then you can slowly introduce it, okay? 30 years plus of cooking and I still have them all. How bad is that, okay? He says as he chops his finger off. Okay, so all we're going to do now, right, is we are just going to slice this down. So we're just taking this like so, and a good sharp knife will slice through these onions. If it was a blunt knife, you'd be struggling. You really, really would. You'd probably be squashing the onion. You'd probably be better off trying to cut it with this, to be perfectly honest, okay? So we're just slicing down through here, like so. Get to the last bit there. Now, leftover bits and pieces, peelings and things like that. One good tip is obviously compost if you can. The other thing is you can actually just use these, your carrot peelings, your onion peelings, the bits left over, celery or leek. You can pop them all into a big pot. You can fill it with water, and the next thing you can do is actually you can start to compost those down, okay? Oh, sorry, compost them down. You can put those into a big pot, and fill it with water, and then what you can do is reduce it down and it gives you a lovely veggie stock, okay? So you can either put these into the composter, which we're going to do there, and another tip is as well is the bread that I bought came in like the paper bag. So rather than go off and use those plasticky kind of environmentally degradable plastic that they say compost down for your compost bins, what you can use is the bag that the bread came in. You can put all your veggie bits and pieces in, and we're repurposing that bag because it's paper and it will compost down with our veggie trimmings. So we've got our onion here, okay? So just finished chopping this last onion. So all we're going to do then is we're going to put this into our pan. And again, when I cook, I'm cooking with an induction hob, so an induction pan as well. I used to cook with gas and now I switched to induction. I find them both very, very similar. They're both kind of instant with regards, they'll come on really quickly, they'll heat up really quickly. Induction is really quick. And I remember the first time I would have seen an induction hob was back in the 80s when I was in college as a chef. And your man put like, who's got a fiver? Back then that was a lot of money. So the lecturer says yes, pops the fiver down on top of the induction hob, puts the pan on, turns it on and boils some water, and you're like, it didn't burn the fiver. Your man thought he was going to lose a fiver. But now they're pretty standard in lots of places, and we're going to turn this induction hob up, not to a high heat. We just want this to be kind of like a medium to low heat. And I'm going to put in there a nice glug of olive oil. What's a good glug of olive oil? As I always say, probably if you were going to measure it, maybe like a couple of tablespoons or a little bit more. For me, it's kind of like just 1, 2, job done, okay? And then we're going to start to warm that oil up. So whilst that's warming up, we're just going to finish chopping our onion. As I said, the smaller you chop your onion, the quicker this is going to cook. As you say, a nice sharp knife. And this is one of those dishes, as I say, it's real kind of bold flavours. And this is where we don't want you to be kind of afraid to put some of these flavours in, because it is this real kind of like, whoo, it's an explosion going on, all right? So we're going to pop this into here, like so. You can bring it across like this if you wish. It's up to yourself. You can bring the pan over to you like that. It's entirely up to yourself. As I always say with cooking, there's no rules, and there shouldn't be rules. There should never be rules in cooking. Baking is a different fish, a different kettle of fish. I was never a baker. I was always told I was the only person they've ever met that could bake a stale cake, because there's so many rules with baking. Like, you have to put in this and you have to put in that. With cooking, if you like garlic, you put more garlic in. If you like chili, you put more chili in. If you like whatever it is, you just chuck it in there. When you're baking, if you turn around and said, well, I like flour, so I'm going to put another like 4 tablespoons of flour in. It doesn't work that way, do you know what I mean? Because you totally have just like put this thing in an imbalance, because it's all about kind of like the ratios of things and how they react and respond to each other. So I like cooking. So on a medium-low heat, as we said there, what we're doing, you can see that here, it's just gently bubbling. It's not kind of frying, it's not too aggressive, it's just nice, kind of what we say, like nice and lazy and gentle, okay? So we want to cook these really sort of like for about 5 minutes or so. You can kind of, not speed up the process is the wrong word, but what you can do is, if by popping a lid on, what we're going to do is we're going to capture that steam's going to go back into it, and it's going to start to sweat. That's where that kind of sweating comes from. I said there, sweating, sauteing, frying. You might think they all sound the same. For me, it's left, right, and straight on. They mean totally different things, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to sweat these down. So we want the moisture, we want that to drop back into the pan, and all that is flavour, okay? So we're getting more and more flavour, and then once we take the lid off and there's a lot of moisture there, once we reduce that down, we're going to intensify those flavours, because by condensing it, it just really kind of makes it much more of an intense flavour, okay? So as we said there, it's just gently bubbling away. Now, if you're happy to, and this is the confidence, you can give it the kind of the chef's, the fancy, you can showboat and you can do all these bits and pieces. If you're not, don't, because you're just going to end up covering yourself in bits and pieces and oil and stuff. And I'm always being given out to, because all of my clothes are normally covered in oil. So I think, oh, I'll cook something, and I've got like my bestest clothes on, and then I end up just getting myself destroyed. Okay, so it's okay, use a spoon. Chefs use spoons as well, like, do you know what I mean? So we're going to cook this down like so. So as I said there, these are big, bold, smoky flavours. And I said, that's one thing. I think it's just my job over the last 30 odd years as a firefighter. I was London Fire Brigade for 9 years before I moved to Ireland in 2000, where I've been with the Irish Fire Service. So I'm 30 odd years, and I just love, I suppose for me, the real familiar smells is the smell of smoke. I've got so used to it. It's a beautiful smell, and I love it, especially with food. And I love those real earthy, smoky flavours as well. So we're going to just let this reduce down. So what we're going to do then is we're going to start to introduce our spices, our cinnamon, our cumin, our paprika. And what we'd say is, if there is like not a lot of moisture in that pan, once we start to add this, it's going to really kind of start to dry out the dish. So we want to add these in, and then we want to cook them out a little bit. So you need to cook them for a minute or so, because I suppose all we're doing is we're chucking in a bunch of strangers, and we want them to get on with each other. We want them to mix together. We want them to kind of become friends and create this kind of kind of like symphony of taste that's going on here. So once we add them in, we can turn the heat down a little bit, and then we can just stir it just to allow those flavors just to start to kind of cook out a little bit. If you're not confident, just turn it off the heat, or take it off of the heat, add them, stir them in, pop the lid on, leave it for a couple of minutes, okay? Or you can just chuck them in, as we say, and you can just stir them. It's entirely up to yourself. So all we've done so far is we've just got our onions in here, and we've just been sweating these down, okay? So as you can see, again, as I keep saying, it's nice to be able to see it. I'm very much tactile. I need to smell it, I need to taste it, I need to see it. So this is great for me to be able to show you that they're really starting to soften down now. As I said, if these were big chunks of onion, they're going to take quite a while to kind of like cook down. So the smaller they are, the quicker they cook, all right? So they're coming along nicely. I'm going to pop that lid back on. So what we're going to add in now is we're going to add in our smoked paprika. Again, I just can't rave about this stuff enough. A couple of tablespoons have gone in there. There's quite a lot of smoked paprika that goes in there, but I love those bold flavours. I love the taste that it gives. I said it brings the dish together. So all we're going to do is we're going to stir that in now. And straight away, it's a game changer. Straight away, you can smell that paprika. You can smell almost like that barbecue-y flavour. And you can see it from having the oil that was in the pan, it's now started to disappear because the paprika started to absorb those flavours. The paprika has absorbed those flavours. The paprika has now soaked up all of that kind of oniony, juicy sweat that we were trying to get in the dish in the first place. So none of our flavour's been wasted, all right? So there we go. We're going to add in now our cumin seed, okay? So there's about a teaspoon of cumin seed that's gone into it. Now, all of this is stuff that is readily available and easy to get, okay? If you weren't a fan of something, as I always say, a recipe is a guide. A recipe is something that you take, that you would follow step by step. You would cook. You would say, actually, yeah, that's really, really nice. Just turn that down a little bit. Always use your senses when you're cooking, okay? So you're using your ear to hear that noise, that frying noise, that sweating noise. You're using your eyes all the time to see what's going on. For me, I use this a lot, my nose, because I can smell it. And again, it's experience. This has been around for quite a while, and it's been smelling lots of things, like from the fire station, things you don't want to know about. But also, well, from a cooking point of view, it's also been smelling flavours. So you know when things start, it's experience. And it's really hard to teach experience. But experience is telling me, when you start to smell it, we're now ready to add the rest of the bits and pieces in as well. So now we've got in there our onions that we've sweated down, lovely and soft. We added now paprika. You don't have to add them into the order that I'm adding them in, okay? We can put them in any order. This is just me. This is just the way that I cook, okay? So we've got our paprika and our cumin. Now I'm going to put in there our cinnamon, okay? So I said there's about a teaspoon of cinnamon. I use cinnamon quite a lot. As I said, it's like nature's sugar. It's great to help regulate blood sugars and stuff like that. It's really good for us. But it also adds a lovely flavour. And I would also put that into like bolognese sauces and ragouts. I'd also put that into like lentil ragout or lentil bolognese, lasagnas and things like that. And it's one of those flavours that when you eat the dish, you can taste it. You know that it's there, but you can't pinpoint what it is. It's something that really just lets you know that it's there. But it's kind of this innocuous kind of, what is it? There's something there, but I just can't taste what it is. And it's cinnamon normally. I say it gives a lovely flavour to this dish. I say we're creating some bold, really kind of bold and strong flavours, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to pop in there some apple cider vinegar. Just about a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar goes in there as well. And then what we're getting now is almost that yin and that yang, that sweet and that tang of the acid from there. We're getting that sweet and sour vibe going on, okay? And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that sweet and sour tangy flavour. I'm going to pop in there now as well my barbecue sauce, all right? So I said there, barbecue sauce of flavour. I just picked the one that I would normally use. And why try and reinvent the wheel? We're trying to create those bold, smoky flavours. This has it, but I don't want to use all of it. I'm regulating what I put into this, okay? So I'm going to pop in there, it's about 4 tablespoons. Goes in. If you want, you could actually use it as a condiment if you wanted to as well, where you can actually just put it into like on top of the bap, or if you wanted to put your mayonnaise with a little squirt of barbecue sauce on as well. So you can still use it as a condiment, okay? As I'd always say, you just regulate it. So now, what we're getting is this lovely, sticky barbecue sauce, all right? Now what we've got is we have here, as I call this, firefighter's sweat, all right? So this is liquid smoke. It's like being at work. So I'm going to put in there about a teaspoon, okay? So, or if you want to, about a capful. That's that, of liquid smoke, okay? And that's really going to kind of just ramp it up. It's actually readily available to buy online, so there's no problem if you say it's not in the stores. I actually bought this in my local supermarket. It's there. It's in a lot of kind of like, say like Whole Food markets and stuff like that. You'll find some of this liquid smoke. There's different types that are out there, but you can definitely buy it online, so there's no problem with regards to that. And it lasts for a considerable period of time. So now, as I always say, the smell. Once you walk into the house and you smell this, you know what's going to happen, especially if you've had it before. And I always think that smells of food conjures up great food memories. For me, as I say, I'd always remember going to my nan, my grandmother. My grandmother, she was on her own, so she used to take in foreign students. They had students from Israel, from where were they from? From Turkey. They were from Iran. They were from Nigeria. So I grew up with all of these people from a young kid going off to the market with my nan in South London. And we'd walk around these markets with the students, and they would be buying food that they were used to eating from home, and it's food that I'd never seen, like okra. You know, like what 7-year-old kind of has ever heard of? What 7-year-old has ever heard of okra before? Like, you know, and you'd see them cooking it back in my nan's house. So I was kind of exposed to all these different flavours at an early age. And I say it was just great to see these different cultures and these different flavours. I travelled when I was 18. I hitchhiked around Europe, and I lived in a tent for 6 months. And there was a time where we were just outside of Barcelona. And what we were doing is, whilst we were there, everybody kind of contributed. There was French guys, Danish guys, German guys, Italian guys, English guys, there were Scottish guys, you name it, we're from all over the place. And we all sat down every evening, and we just kind of just chatted about what we did in the day, where's a good place to go and visit. People came and people went, where's a good place, but they were just passing through. Food was the common bond. Food brought us together, and food speaks all languages. And you don't need to kind of know what this is in a different language, because people see this, they know exactly what it is because they've seen them before. And that's what I say. Visually, it's great to have these things to see, but we know what it is. And as I say, I used to go to my grandmother's house, and you'd walk in and there'd be like dinner cooking. You knew exactly what my nan was cooking, like, you know what I mean? You just smell it and you said, yeah, you're home. It's just like pure comfort food. So now we're ready. What we will do is have a quick taste. I don't like to go too far without a spoon in my back pocket. We'll just see how we're doing for this. This should be a bold. Yep. Tomatoes. I'm going to put in some tomatoes into here. Only about 200 grams, a tin of tomatoes, small tin. Okay. Now what I've done as well is, once you've emptied out your tin of tomatoes, just give it a little rinse with water, because there's some stuff that's in there that we can use for there, and just pour a little bit of that in there, like so. So as you can see how this looks now, we're getting this lovely sticky barbecue sauce, all right? The next thing we need to put into here, this is the person that keeps saying about like, put your stuff away, put your stuff away, put your stuff away. I'm just gonna pop these into the sink. Is this. So this is kind of like a jalapeno, smoked jalapeno pepper, okay? Now there's a great kick off of these. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take these out. There's a couple in there. I think there's 3 in there. Okay, and there's a little bit of the sauce. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop these up. These offer smokiness. They offer heat, like a nice bit of heat. Actually, do you know what I'll do? I'll only put half of them in, because I like it. I don't know how you guys like it. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for a second. I'm just going to put in the rest of this sauce, because it's really, really smoky. Smoky, 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 and smoky. Like so. And I'm just going to pop the rest of that back in there, and we'll use that for another day. Okay? Just. Now we're nearly ready to add into our jackfruit, all right? So let's go back to and have a quick recap of what we've done while we stir this in. We took our onion and we sweated that down. We drew out as much moisture by putting that lid on, so we had a nice amount of liquid. And then we started to add into that our spices and our herbs. We added in our paprika, okay? And you saw that it sucked up that water, and then it became kind of paprika-y, smoky, onion juice infused, okay? We added then our cumin seed. We added in our cumin seeds, and then we cooked that off for a little while as well. We added in there our cinnamon, just a teaspoon of cinnamon, and you can taste it in there. It's there, but as I said to you there, it's like there's something in there, but I can't pinpoint which gives it that lovely flavour. We put in there our barbecue sauce, and we put in there our apple cider vinegar. So what we should have now is this kind of balance of sweet and sour. Everybody has an individual palate, all right? Mine's different to yours. So what you need to do is you need to find your balance. You need to find where is the sweet point for you, where's the sour point for you. And once you find that, then you can tweak it yourself. You might want more of this and more of that. As I say, I'm totally complimented if you change the recipe, tweak it, but keep cooking it. And that's the most important thing. If you can keep cooking these dishes, if you keep using these ingredients, not only is it going to help change you from as a person, it's going to change the way that our body functions, because we're using whole foods, we're using really good foods in us, but also as well, it's really going to help the planet. And this is what we're really trying to get you guys to do, is convert from the current way that you eat to a plant-based diet. As I said, the vegans that are watching, it's a great recipe for you to cook. Yeah, but also as well is I'm not trying to convert you. You're already on the same side of the fence as me. It's for you. Yes, you. Yes, you. You're the one I'm trying to convince. So make it, taste it, and post it up on the socials. So post it up on Meet the Vegans. Post it on the official Firefighting Chef. Say, do you know something? I really liked it. I cook it. Let's see what you're cooking. Let's see how this works out for you, okay? I'm really interested to see how it works out. So, our jackfruit. Tins of jackfruit, okay? So actually, if you looked at a jackfruit, it's like a small child. It's this thing that's about this big. It's huge, okay? And inside you get these, what we'll do is I'll open it up and show you, okay? Again, you can buy these. They're readily available to buy. It's shy, it doesn't want to come out the tin. Come on. There we go. I suppose I've never eaten fish. People say, you know, wow, you know, you've never eaten fish as well. I did when I was younger, when I was about 5 or 6. And people say, oh, wow, you know, is that like because of your ethics, because of this, because that? So I was allergic to it when I was a kid. It used to make me sick, come out in a rash. So I had no desire to go back to that place that would make me really, really ill. So I've never eaten tuna, I've never eaten salmon, I've never eaten this. And people say, it's probably why I left school at 15. You know, I was lacking in omega-3s and 6s probably. I wasn't. But what I'm saying is that it looks almost kind of, it's almost like that tuna vibe going on about it. Do you know what I mean? I say I've never eaten it, so I wouldn't know what tuna tastes like. But I can tell you that it's kind of, from what I've seen about it. So our jackfruit, okay? This is what it looks like. We've kind of got this, the harder part of it, and then what you've got is this kind of, this here. So if you're looking at mimicking kind of like that meaty texture, okay, then what you've got is it just falls apart, and it's really, really easy. And the more we cook this, the more it's going to fall apart. All I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a little bit of assistance before I pop it into my sauce, okay, because I suppose I'm conscious that you're watching me for a period of time. As much as I'm lovely, you still want to cook this dish and you want to eat this dish. I get that, do you know what I mean? But I am lovely. So any of these other bits and pieces like this, I'm just going to cut these down quite finely, like so, all right? And that's what we're going to end up with. But this is that, if you've seen it all before, you've seen like the pulled porks. So all we're doing is we're just using this and we're just going to kind of pull this apart, all right? So I'm going to be doing that. As we can see here, what we've got is this beautiful smoky sauce. As I keep saying, check the seasoning, and check the seasoning. So what we should have is this really, oh yeah, there's a lovely kick off of those jalapeno pepper, real smokiness, and a lovely sweetness. So I'm just going to start to chop these up. What you can do, you can still pop these in whole, like so, and then what you can do with the fork, once it's cooking, you can kind of mush it down, because we're really trying to incorporate that. But as I said, just to kind of just bring things along a little bit, I'm just going to bring those down like so. Or as I say, you can just take it and you can just shred it down yourself, and it really, woo, that one's still alive. What it is this is still just pulls itself down. You can see this. It actually looks like, if you was to just say to people, what's that? They'll probably say, was it kind of like pork, is it, or whatever it be? And it's just jackfruit. I said there, it's a really kind of handy little thing to have. inexpensive. It's not that expensive. You don't need a huge amount of it. As I say, this is going to make probably about 6 sliders. I've only got 4 buns here for the moment, so the lads are going to have to fight over that. But that's not for me to kind of get involved with. We'll leave them to sort it out. What I will know is I'm going to feed Sam the cameraman because he's the really most important person because he's making me look good. Okay, so we're just going to do so. So you can do a combination of whichever. As we go, we're going to pop that in here. And as I say, guys, look, like we're not trying to fool you, but like if you was just to see this, you'd be sworn that it was kind of shredded chicken or shredded pork or something like that. It's just jackfruit. And once we start coating it in this, I mean, look at that. What we're trying to get, as I said earlier on, is as someone on a plant-based diet, as a vegan, we're entitled to dribbly chins too. And we want them. We want those flavors. We want this. Some of them you'll find they are just like the actual kind of piece of fruit itself. You can see that sometimes there's these like little shells. You can just pop those, or little pods. You can just pop those. Sometimes there's a little bit of husk. You can just leave that out because sometimes it's just a little bit hard. But again, some of them lend themselves really well to just being literally just shredded. As I say, you could pop them into the pan and you can just use a fork. I'm just showing you now what this looks like. I'm just showing you there, just shredding it beforehand, how this works. And again, some of them are firmer than others, and that's okay. You can cut it with a knife if you wish, or you can just pop it into the pan and off you go. But as I say, we're building this up. I might not use all of this, we'll see. If ever you have any questions, if ever you kind of just get a little bit lost, then just send us a message, DM us, Meet the Vegans, and any questions, we're there to help you. As I say, we're here to change your attitudes. As I said, 30 years kicking down doors, and all I'm doing now is kicking down attitudes. And I dare you to say this isn't nice. Never argue with a man with a big knife. But I dare you to say that that isn't flavoursome, because the same base flavours that are going into this go into the meat version. So that doesn't change. The flavour doesn't change. It's just the main kind of like the bulk, the actual like the pulled part of it is we're using the jackfruit. So as I said there, the actual base flavour is the same flavour. So we can't turn around and say, well, it's not as flavoursome, because it's the same sauce. It isn't changing. Do you know what I mean? All right. So what I want to do is just give it a little clean down, because I'm into cleaning. I love the washing machine. Like my partner, she just keeps giving out because I love the washing machine. I love the tumble dryer. They're my friends, and I spend a lot of time with them. So again, I do like a tidy chopping board. We'll chop it all in there. We'll stick it all in. As you say, you'll find that some of this really shreds easily, which is brilliant. Some of it might be just a little bit tough, and if it's a little bit too tough, you can either leave it out or you can cook it down a little bit more. Or for me, I just cut it up a little bit, like so, and it's like those little crumbs that you'd get of meat, should we call it, like that you can get there, okay? So again, some of them, as I said there, like this one here, I mean, look, just literally just starts to flake, it just starts to fall away. It really, it's just, as I say, what's to go wrong? This is one of my favourites because it's big and bold from someone that's small and shy. But I remember talking to Jeff from Meet the Vegans, this is where I'm most comfortable. This is my armour. This is where I can just sit there and talk to people. I suppose it's like a comforter. It's where I'm secure. It's not because I'm behind a barrier. Don't get me wrong. It's just, this is just, I've been standing here behind a counter like cooking in the fire station, cooking as a chef, traveling around the world. This is where I was at my happiest. This is where I am me. This is where the firefighting chef is smiling. And it's a really important place, because the kitchen table is one of those places where we've shared so many stories. We've shared births, we've shared deaths, we've shared marriages, we've shared kind of loads of stories. It's where we feed the kids. It's such an important place for us, and never underestimate the power of it, that connection that you can have where you connect with the family, where people come to visit. Everyone sits around the kitchen table, okay? Share food, share stories, and that's what it is. Learn from each other, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Life is about making mistakes, and it's the mistakes, that's where we learn, okay? So if we look at this now, what we've got is it looks like a big pile of kind of pulled meats or chickens or whatever, but it's jackfruit. It's good for us, it's good for the environment, and those base flavours, as I'm saying, they're the same base flavours that you would put into any dish. So we can't argue those flavours. We can't say, you know, as I said earlier on, you know, whatever it be, it tastes disgusting. It isn't. we're mixing it in with this sauce. We're stirring this in now, and we're getting these beautiful flavors. Now, if you find, okay, that it's probably a little less saucy than you'd like, add a little bit of water in there, or maybe add a little bit more tomatoes in there or something like that. It's up to yourself. Again, just because I've done it a certain way, you can chop it and change it. But ultimately we're not looking for it to be really, really saucy, but we're looking at it to almost be like this. We want this. This would have been like the other version that would have been cooked for like over hours in a slow cooker or something like that. Okay, as you can see there, the more you kind of cook this, the more heat gets into it, the more it gets kind of smushed, the more you get these beautiful kind of pulled texture, and that's the look that we're looking for, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that now on a little low and slow heat while we talk and concentrate on our coleslaw. So the first thing I'm going to do, just give that a quick little wipe down, like so. I'm going to pop a lid on it, okay, just so trying to keep the flavour in. So I'm allowing, again, like with the onion, we're getting that moisture that comes up and it falls back down into the pan, and then that's just going to create more flavour, more sauce, and it's going to intensify. The longer we leave this to cook, the greater those flavours come out. And again, I say I like cooking that thrives on neglect, okay? It's kind of lazy cooking. If you wanted to, you could pop the oven on. You could cover that if the lid and the pan is good for the oven. All I do is put that into the oven, or if it's gonna put a bit of foil over the top of it, and then aluminium foil, and then pop it into the oven, maybe nice and slow, maybe 140, 160, something like that. And you can leave it in the oven for like half an hour. So you don't have to worry about it. I can go off and play with the washing machine while this is cooking away, okay? So all we do is just make sure that that is just bubbling away nice and gently. Not too high a heat, because remember there's some sugar in there in the barbecue sauce. So sugar has a tendency, if it's kind of cooked too quickly, to start to burn and start to catch. So you do need to keep an eye on it, okay? Because we want to make sure that everything's okay. What we could do is add a little liquid into there, okay? And by adding that liquid, we can then just allow it to cook, and then we can reduce the liquid back out of it. So don't be afraid to put more liquid in and you think, oh, it's too runny. If it's too runny, just cook it for a little bit more with the lid off, because all of the steam is basically, it's that moisture, and it's going to reduce, and it's going to reduce, and it's going to get stickier, and it's going to get stickier, and it's going to get stickier, okay? And as I always say, we need to taste this. We need to know where we're at, okay? I haven't put any salt in or anything like that. We just need to know, is it a good flavour? I might put a little bit of salt in there. There's definitely a kick off the chilli. So as you can see now, it's really starting to come together. It looks like that pulled texture. It's the right consistency is what we're looking for. We're looking for something that will hold itself together when we pop it into the bun, but also as well, it's kind of moist enough that when you do bite into it, it does start to escape, that you have to kind of quickly eat around the edges, otherwise it goes everywhere. And that's what we want. We want the dribbly chin. So I'm going to pop the lid onto there, like this. And now let's get on to our coleslaw, okay? So we take our ingredients here. We're going to use about a quarter of this red cabbage and a quarter of the white cabbage, okay? So what we're going to do, put that down there. I'm going to take my cabbage like so. And as I said, I've just taken the bottom off. It's going to stop it from moving around, okay? Because again, make sure we've got a good grip on the knife and a good sharp knife. And all we're going to do is we're going to cut down through the cabbage, okay? So we're going to take this and we're going to take about a quarter of our cabbage. Now, food processors, they have their place. People would sit there, they'd get their food processor set up, they'd take this and they'd shred this one piece in a food processor. My kind of pet hate is having to wash stuff up, all right? It's like, I do love cooking, but all those things like food processing, you're trying to get all the bits and pieces out. So I say, do you know something? For the amount that I'm cutting up, I'm quite happy just to do it by knife. And also what it does as well is it gives kind of like, improves your knife skills as well. As you see there, I've cut the cabbage into quarters. I cut it in half and cut it in half again. And you can see here, you probably see it better on the red cabbage, okay? Is that what we've got here is we've got this core, okay? So that's the hard part of the cabbage. We don't want that, okay? So all we're gonna do is we're just gonna kind of put this like this and cut down at an angle, like so, and we cut that core out. And we do the same on this one, like so, okay? Keep these, okay? Because remember, we're gonna compost those down. So they go into my compost bin. There is a bin down there, by the way. I'm not just chucking everything on the floor. And then all we're going to do is we're going to take our cabbage, like so, and then we're just going to slice through nice and finely, okay? So, and as you can see, really, really, really fine, okay? Now, just because we're doing this, Don't forget about that over there, okay? So we need to make sure that this isn't catching, that it isn't sticking. Lovely, look at that. Pop that back there. So, back to our cabbage. I just keep moving it around, just makes it easier to cut. Down to the last part. Our red cabbage, same thing. You'll find with the red cabbage you start to get red hands, but don't worry about it too much, okay? It will wash out. And again, if you're not confident to do what I was doing, just, as we said there, just slice gently. Yeah. Be in control of the knife. Don't let the knife be in control of you, all right? So traditionally, as we said there, people think of the coleslaw with the mayonnaise. So all we're doing is we're not using a mayonnaise. We're just going to be using almost like a salad dressing, just with some lemon juice and some mustard and some oil, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that, I'm going to pop that into my bowl here, like so, and pop in there my red cabbage and my white cabbage, okay? Now into that as well, traditionally coleslaw was onion, carrots and cabbage. So we're just using the mixture of cabbage here. So I'm going to take now a couple of carrots, okay? Just going to take those off like so. Now I've washed my carrots, okay? Do I need to peel them? Not really, they're not dirty. People just get into the habit of peeling stuff for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't need to. I'm quite happy with the way that they are. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to grate my carrots. This I find much more dangerous than this. This is the thing that takes your fingernails off or whatever it be. So keep your fingers away. And what you're getting is these lovely, fresh, grated carrot, okay? It's one of those things, it's that, as I said there, it's that mixture of taste and texture and colour. So we're getting a crunch from our coleslaw, we're getting our lovely kind of soft pulled jackfruits. As I said there, I'm kind of like a lazy cook, and it's about batch cooking. So if I can cook enough of this, you can pop this into the fridge and you can use it as and when you want as well, because it will last for a few days in the fridge. So all I'm going to do is pop in that there now, like so. All right, and just going to give that a quick little mix up. So again, we've got our oranges, we've got our reds, we've got our whites. Eat the rainbow. Taste, texture and colour. Now, an onion. We need to put an onion into our coleslaw. So all we're going to do is we're going to take half of our red onion, okay? So first of all, remember, peel my onion, take off the bottom of it. I'm just going to peel off the skin, and then I'm going to cut it in half. Now, rather than dice it, like we diced the last one, what we're going to do with this one is we're going to kind of just like finely shred it, okay, and pop it in there. So it kind of stays the same kind of texture, rather than put it into little dices, okay? I know, I can hear you saying, what about the pulled jackfruit? But don't forget to give it a stir. I won't, don't worry. We'll come back to that in a second. So let's give this a little stir and see where we're at. Just turn it down a little bit. And again, you can't smell this, but you can smell those really strong, bold barbecue flavours. And that's what we're looking for. We're nearly there. Okay, just turn that down to there. Our red onion, as we said, we're going to cut this in half. Whereas before we had the top part that we left on, because that would hold the onion together while we were dicing it. With this, we're just going to take off that little part of the onion, okay? I'll put that there. And all we're going to do then is we're just going to slice through this onion, okay? So we're going to kind of keep the same sort of like shards of carrot and cabbage that we have there. So as you can see, the knife isn't leaving the board, all right? We're not, and it's not all over the place by losing it. And what you get is you get these kind of lovely shards, and we're going to break those up before we put them in, just so you kind of all nice and flakes into our dish. When you get to that last little bit, rather than trying to cut through that and maybe lose a finger, just drop it down and just pop the last bits in. Predominantly, it's all shredded, and those last few little bits that are in small little pieces, it's no real biggie. Do you know what I mean? Now, if you want to put a whole onion in there, put a whole onion in there. There's no rules. If you like the onion, just put it in there. All right, we're going to get a lovely crunch off of it. So now we've got our slaw, a Cajun slaw. If you wanted to use a plant-based mayo, put that in there, you're more than welcome to. As I say, we're going to use just like a lemon and olive oil dressing in here, okay, with a little bit of mustard. So salad dressings are normally kind of like 2/3 to 1/3. We've got oil and we've got kind of like the fats that go into that with our olive oil, and then we've got kind of like the acid, which is like the vinegar. We're going to be using a lemon juice, okay? So I'm going to make it separately. I'm going to mix it up, and I'm going to add it into my coleslaw, okay? So what we're going to do, we are going to put in there probably about 4 tablespoons of olive oil, which would probably be what, 1, 2, 3, 4, good, okay? All right, we're going to put in there some lemon juice and some mustard. So we're going to pop in there about 2 teaspoons of a good Dijon mustard, all right, like so. If you think it needs more, put more in. If you think that it, you know, if you're not a mustard fan, start with 1 teaspoon, mix it up and taste it. And if you're happy with it, or if you think that it isn't kind of like too, you know, you need more, pop it in there. And what I will say, I'm just going to put a little bit of seasoning in there as well. What I will say is, when you think about this, this is the way I liken it to, you know, like a squash, a cordial, a drink that you would pour and you put water into it, like an orange one or a blackcurrant drink or something like that. That in itself is a condensed flavour, okay? You put liquid into it and then you dilute it down and then you get the taste that you want. A salad dressing like this is a condensed flavour. So when you taste this, it should be quite strong tasting, because we're putting it into this. That's predominantly made up of water. So that's like our diluting. That's going to dilute this flavour. So don't make it how you want it to taste at the end. Think about how it will taste at the end, because this will dilute this down, if that makes sense, okay? So we've got our Dijon mustard in there, a little bit of salt in there, and we've got our olive oil in there, okay? I'm going to put in there the juice of about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, okay? So I'm just going to give a check on this. This is on a low heat, okay? So we're cooking this down nice, low and slow. So it's that kind of, as I said there, it's because it's kind of that deep south. It's that, you know, like almost like a Matthew McConaughey, it's that deep drawl, like kind of drawl. And this is the way that we want to cook. We want to cook like it's taught, just slow and casual and easy. There's no rush in this. This isn't a dish that's got bang, bang, bang. This is a dish that's just kind of just takes its time, does its thing. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's on a low heat, just gently cooking away there, doing its thing. All of that flavour's coming together there. So we'll pop that lid on and we'll let it do its thing, okay? Let's get back to here. So all I'm going to do is take my lemon, give it a little roll first of all, okay? It's just going to help start to break down the juice. We're using unwaxed lemons here. And then all I'm going to do is just, and again, with a lot of fruit that you can't see into, the likes of oranges that are seedless, likes of lemons, sometimes you get a lemon and there's no seeds in it. Sometimes you get another lemon and there's like 9,000 seeds in it, okay? So as long as the lemon flavour is good, we can sieve out those bits and pieces, okay? So I'm going to put in there about 2 tablespoons, forgive me, of lemon juice, okay? So how do I know what that is? I suppose it's just kind of experience, really. It's kind of like 1, and all I'm using my hand here just to filter out the seeds. Maybe 2 there, and just pop that back in there. Now I'll leave that there because I might need to add more into it. Then all we're going to do is just bring this together. So a small whisk, a fork, if you don't have a small whisk, there's no hassle, a fork, spoon. You could use, like if you have one of these and it's empty, keep it, because all you can do is you can pour in your oil, you can pour in your lemon juice, you can put in your bits and pieces, pop the lid on once it's clean and you've washed it out, give it a good shake, and then what you've got is you've got your dressing. And again, if you're going to make something like this, make quite a bit of it, and then you can just leave it in the fridge and it's there for when you need it, okay? And you can see that it's actually changed. What's happened here is we've got an emulsification. So the oil and the acid and stuff, it's emulsified and it's changed that colour and it's become slightly thick. Now, again, he goes back to have a little taste. A little bit more oil. Again, this is something that really is kind of like a personal taste. I won't double dip. can hear all you people. He's putting the same spoon back in there. No, he's not. I've got about 30 in my back pocket. Now, it's nice and tart, and that's what we're looking for. So all we're going to do now, pop that out of the way, and pop that out of the way. We're going to take this, and we're just going to pour our dressing over our slaw, okay? Because this can be quite a powerful flavour, because that is a big strong flavour as well. Okay, so we're going to get away with it. We just stir that in like so. So, red onion, red cabbage, white cabbage, carrot, and then that is just our Cajun slaw. Again, you look at how many people this is going to feed. It will feed at least 6 to 8 people, okay? So we've got plenty. But what we've done is we've created stuff for another day. You could eat this on its own. You could eat this just as a side. It's up to yourself. We're going to pop it into our bun. Now, that's ready. So we are now almost ready to start plating up. So I'm just going to move a few things out the way and clean down. We'll have one more final check on our slaw and our pulled jackfruit. As I said there, this consistency is just perfect. All right. So now we're just going to take out and have a check. It's hot. And it's smoky. That's good. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pop that lid on there. I'm going to move it out of the way. I'm just going to bring a pan in because I just want to toast the bun. You can pop into a toaster. I'm just going to pop into the pan ever so quickly, okay? I'm going to move that over there, out of the way, off the heat. And then I'm just going to take my pan here, like so. I'm just going to turn that up. Now, we're going to use these brioche buns. It's great that we can now get these because it's one thing you kind of like would miss is that lovely sweet bun. Okay, and all I'm going to do is literally just pop them into the dry pan, and what we're going to do is just toast them off, just brown them ever so slightly. Okay, so we can turn our pan up onto a medium-ish heat, and we can just toast them. You can use a toaster if you wish. Just pop them into a toaster, press it down. If you have one, perfect. But for me, we're just going to pop them into a pan. So I'm just waiting for that pan to get a little bit hotter. If you wanted to, you could put a little bit of oil in the pan, if you wish. I'll show you. There's no need to. If you wanted to, you could put even like a little bit of the plant-based butter in as well. Again, if you want to, there's no hassle. And all we're going to do is bring that up, and we're just going to toast these and brown these off, okay? It's like so. Just give it a little whiz around, like so. So they're both covered in the oil. Pop those buns in, like so. And because they're kind of sweetish, they will kind of toast nice and quickly. So just be mindful of that, all right? We're almost ready to start plating up. But before we start plating up, because Christian moved my plate, I'm going to have to go and get my plate, which is just down there. So please hang on with me. Because they're quite sweet, okay, they will kind of caramelize really, really quickly. So those sugars, when they meet that high heat, they'll kind of not burn, but they'll start to caramelize really, really quickly, okay? So we just need to make sure, you can see they're starting to toast already. So I'm just keeping an eye on them to make sure that they don't kind of burn. I want them just to be nicely browned, okay? As you can see, it's happening really quickly around the edges. So we just need to keep an eye on them. So we're ready to plate up. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of build the layers. We're going to put our base of our bun. I'm going to pop on there a little bit of mayo as well, all right? Why not? So we're going to take our buns. As you can see, we're starting now starting to brown these buns off really nicely, okay? So what we'll do is we'll take this one as our base. We're going to pop on there a little bit of plant-based mayonnaise, and it's about building those layers and building those flavors, okay? So we're going to just take these off and turn the heat off like so. As we see there, they're now nice and toasted, and you want to get that kind of, you want to see those browns, you want to see those kind of, and it all adds to the taste, adds to the texture, adds to the flavor, okay? So now it's showtime. What we're going to do, we're going to take our spoon, and we are going to take a nice spoonful of our lovely, sticky, sweet, pulled jackfruit, okay? Now this is hot. This is lovely once it's cooled down, so it's kind of like warmish as well, even cold. It's one of those things that you just kind of, I I always say cook a little bit more. One is because you can bulk cook, you can have some for the next day, but also as well, this house is full of grazers. And what I mean by grazers, it's people that just do drive-bys and go, that's lovely. Then they come back and say, oh, that's nice. It's like roast potatoes. Do loads because there's always pickers. They'll pick one, they'll pick one, they'll pick one. Okay? So always have a little bit extra for the grazers. Now we're going to take a nice spoonful of this, and plating in itself, okay, we want to make sure that it visually looks appealing, like so. And if you think about it, all of that is just going to go thump, and that's what you want. You want it to be dribbling down your chin. You want to be picking bits and pieces up, okay? Now with our slaw, again, we want to make sure that it tastes good. We want to make sure that there's a load of flavour in there. So we're going to take just a nice piece of this lovely crunchy Cajun slaw, and we're just going to pop that on the top like so. It just starts to cascade down like this. And we're going to finish that now with his little top hat, like this, like so. And there you have our wonderful, just move that out of the way. There you have our wonderful plant-based pulled jackfruit and Cajun slaw brioche bun. The only thing I can say, guys, is just tuck into it, post us the results, let's see how you've done. Thank you very much for your time. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. All that's left to do is say thanks to Meet the Vegans with myself, the firefighting chef. And it's now time to tuck in and eat this. Thanks very much. Cheers.